don't know about you, but some of my best learning experiences growing up and as an adult were from my mistakes and learning from the consequences of my decisions. Understanding the decisions that we make and the results of those consequences are all part of maturing and growing up. And for our kids, we need to teach them that the decisions they make may have consequences. Now, some of the consequences might be small, but others could be large. In today's video, we're going over the concept of natural consequences. What are they? And how do we use them in discipline and in parenting our kids? Hey guys, I'm Jason Kreidman and welcome to another episode of Dad University. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click on that notification bell. Also, it really helps us spread our message when you share these videos. So maybe you know a couple people that might enjoy it. Please share it with them. The definition of natural consequences is the logical outcome of a decision that is made. It's the result of behavior that isn't controlled or planned. Said another way, if we make a choice, the natural consequence is whatever happens as a result of that choice. So an example might be that it's really cold outside and I make the decision to not wear a jacket. The natural consequence there is that I will be cold. If we stay up really late at night and we have to get up early the next morning, so as a result we only get a couple of hours sleep, the natural consequence here is that we will probably be tired the next day. So we even learn as adults and we have to deal with those consequences. You know, sometimes if we are okay with whatever the consequence is, then we're less likely to change that behavior. Some of us know we have to get up early in the morning, but we still choose to deal with that consequence by going to sleep late. Another good example is with drinking alcohol. Most people know that if you drink too much alcohol, the natural consequence is that the next day, you're not going to feel very good. Now, for some, that's a deterrent, and they will not drink. As a result, they don't want to feel horrible the next day. But for many, they're willing to deal with the consequence, so that behavior doesn't change. When we talk about natural consequences with children, we should first be aware that these natural consequences don't always do well with younger children. So if you have a toddler as an example, and you want that toddler to wear a jacket, but they decide that they don't want to wear the jacket, and they go outside and they're cold. Now, if you had an older child or a teen, they're going to probably make that connection. You know, I didn't wear a jacket, but I'm really cold, so next time I better wear a jacket. For a younger child or toddler, they're not making that connection as well. So the next time they go out without a jacket and you say it's cold, they'll probably do the same thing and go outside without a jacket. Younger children are less likely to comprehend the cause and effect. In order for natural consequences to really work, the child needs to understand that if I do this, that happens. Now, remember too, we're talking specifically about natural consequences. So if you're asking your child to go to bed, otherwise they're going to lose their privileges on their electronics, that's not a natural consequence. It was controlled, or you stepped in and made that. So natural consequences is just something that naturally occurs without our intervention. Let's go over a couple of examples that are common with children. Your child refuses to eat dinner. Now remember, you can't do this with a younger child who can't put the connection together that if I don't eat, I'm going to probably be hungry later. Now you have to remember too, they don't get a snack, there's no alternative meal, nothing. So they have to realize that if they're not eating this food for dinner, that natural consequence is that they are going to be really hungry the next day. So that's then a personal decision of whether you want to fight them to eat that dinner or not. But this is where natural consequences comes in, and you can choose to discipline that way and allow them to make that decision. Your child leaves their toy outside. So you have already talked with them and warned them that leaving their toys outside may result in it being gone. Somebody might take it. And so the natural consequence is maybe that the toy is gone. You are not buying them a new toy. Now, remember too, again, this can't be with a very young child who doesn't even realize that their toys are outside. It's something that you have to be able to connect the fact that if they understand that if they leave the toy outside, somebody else is going to take it. And so that age will range depending on your child, but certainly a younger child or toddler is not going to understand that. The child forgets their school lunch. So you've given them a warning or two. In fact, they've forgot their lunch before and you brought it to the school for them. And then you make it very clear, if this happens again, I'm not bringing your lunch back. Now, this probably works with maybe second, third grade and older. Lower than that, they're probably not going to understand it and make the connection. But that's the natural consequence if they forget their lunch, is that they're going to be hungry and they'll have to figure it out. So as a result of that, they'll probably be less likely to forget their lunch next time. Your child doesn't do their homework. You're not bugging them to do their homework, but again, this is not for a really young child. Maybe it's second or third grade and above. But if they are deciding to not do their homework or they forgot, they get that warning, but then either way, it's the natural consequences of what happens at school. Their teacher gives them a bad grade, they get detention, whatever those ramifications are and those decisions that they've made, that's the end result. That's the natural consequence. You can certainly talk with younger children about natural consequences and telling them when they make these kinds of decisions, here's what happens. But you can't necessarily expect to use this as a discipline or parenting tool when they aren't able to make that kind of connection. But you can certainly have those discussions and say, if you're not nice to your friends, they're not going to want to be friends with you. Or if you don't tell the truth, how can people trust you? Or you can be more serious and say, if you take something from a store, you can be arrested. Or if you hurt somebody, you might get in trouble with the law. There's all kinds of things that you can talk to them about. You just have to be mindful that they may not be able to make those connections right away. We have laws and rules which are part of natural consequences. Really, the whole purpose is so that our children understand that when they make a decision, there's a result and a consequence often for that decision. They're going to have so many opportunities to learn and grow from natural consequences. You decide to do this, and here's what happens. When you integrate natural consequences into your parenting, you're probably going to argue a lot less with your child. You can make it clear, hey, it's your decision. You'll have to deal with the consequences. But natural consequences help improve our children's problem-solving skills. It increases resiliency. The truth is, it can be good for them to make some bad choices. It helps them learn. Now, we don't want them to make horrible choices, but some of those little bad choices, it helps them grow. It helps them learn. This is where overprotective parents fail. Overprotective parents shield their kids from experiencing natural consequences. So they don't have failures and they don't get to learn from their mistakes, primarily because they're never able to make any mistakes. So this is where the child doesn't get to grow, doesn't get to learn. And so the parent is actually depriving their child of growing and learning. And so this is where being an overprotective parent just doesn't make sense. Of course, there are times when natural consequences are not a good strategy. Number one, when it's dangerous. A situation like a child's playing in the street, or they're climbing a really high rock. You don't just say, hey, whatever happens, happens. Natural consequences isn't a great tool in those circumstances. Some people might argue that a child touching a hot stove certainly will teach them not to touch the hot stove, and the natural consequences, maybe they get burned. That's dangerous. I'm not going to jump into that one, but you guys can certainly argue that one in the comments. Another time it shouldn't be used, number two, when it may affect someone else. Let's say your child takes a marker and goes and writes all over his brother. So a natural consequence could be that his brother could get really upset and go attack him. That's not a good time to use natural consequence. So anytime when somebody else is involved and it affects another person, then natural consequences usually aren't a good idea. Number three, when it affects their well-being. If your child decides to not brush their teeth or not take a shower, allowing them to have cavities or bad hygiene is not a good time to use natural consequences. If it affects their health in some way or their well-being, probably not a good idea. In general, natural consequences are great. They allow our children to learn the result of their choices. And you ultimately get to say, hey, it's up to you, that's your decision. And I know that parents sometimes want to put their stamp on it. So after the natural consequences happen, a parent might say, hey, I told you that would happen, or I told you so. Try to avoid saying anything like that. Just let the natural consequences happen. Because if you do that, the child is not going to be focusing on what they learned. Instead, they're going to be focused on being mad at you for what you said. What you can say afterwards is, how did you feel about that situation? Was there anything that you would have done differently? The purpose of natural consequences is to learn. And our children need to learn how to deal with being uncomfortable and tolerating discomfort, making mistakes. If they don't experience making mistakes, they're going to have a rough ride as an adult. They're going to lack empathy, probably lack self-awareness. They'll probably be entitled. And we just don't need that in our world. I would love to hear from you. What is a natural consequence that you experienced as a child that really helped you grow and learn? Leave your answers in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, you don't want to miss what we have for you in our other videos. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click on that notification bell. Also, if you know a couple people that might enjoy this video, please share it with them. We'll see you next time.